everybody? Welcome to another episode of Road Runners Unfiltered. It's your host, Darrien Starling. Army defeats UTSA 37-29. There's so much to unpack. I told you guys I was really worried about this Army game based on the physicality that they play with. But before I jump into that, make sure you guys drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel. I just want to give a shout out and give a thank you to everyone who is subscribed. We finally reached that 500 milestone. So next we're on to 1,000. But I really appreciate that. I'm going to make a few adjustments with some of the things that we're going to do in terms of content for the channel. I think you guys will enjoy it. So really appreciate you guys for all of that. But without further ado, let's jump into the recap. So I'll start with my bad observations from the game just because we lost, right? So that's kind of what's at the forefront of my mind. Why did we lose? What played a huge role into some of the breakdowns that we had throughout the game? So I'll go into that. So my initial fear coming into this game against Army was validated 100%. I spoke about this with Aeneas whenever he joined the pod earlier, right before the season. I spoke about this with David Glasgow when he was on the pod as well, that I was worried about a team like Army because of the way they beat you with controlling the clock, the way they beat you with just being physical. They recruit people on their teams to be able to run block very well. That's a different style of lineman that you're going to be looking for if you're a pass-heavy team. You're going to be looking for a lineman that can pass protect better than he can run block. Well, these guys are specialists at getting linemen that are downhill players. And they do that with running back. My big fear, and his name, I didn't have his name before, but Jacoby Buchanan, that big running back that would always convert on us with short yardage, third and short, fourth and short, and scored touchdowns last year. He hunted us again this year. He scored again. So those were things I was worried about because in reality, we've never performed well on the defensive side of the ball against this team. They've put up 30 or more points in the 3 times we played them, and that includes Friday. So they put up 37 on Friday. The year before that, they put up 38 in the overtime game. And when we played them, I believe it's 2019, they put up 31 points in a victory over us. And we just cannot crack that code. And I think it comes down to the style of player that we prefer at UTSA based on the strategies we deploy on a week in and week out basis. When you look at our conference are sort of spread teams too. They throw the ball around. We are very skilled in skilled positions. To be fair, we have great linemen as well. Obviously, we've had talent in the NFL. Spencer Buford is starting for the 49ers at the moment. So, we've had talent in those positions, but not necessarily built for what Army does. And I think it shows itself. And going back to some of the things in the game, what did I tell you guys last week in the preview for the game? The great equalizer that they have is the way that they control the clock. That's how you put a pin in pass-happy spread teams like our offense is. We like to drop back, we like to RPO, we like to throw the ball a lot and all that. The way to stop that is you play keep away with the ball. Listen to this, folks. 44 minutes they had possession of the ball. Understand there are 60 eligible minutes in a full regulation football game, college football game. This does not include overtime, just 4 quarters. Folks, they had 44 minutes. 44 minutes. They basically had the ball for 3 quarters to our 1 quarter. That's how long they had the ball. We can't win a football game if that's the case. We talked about defense, and we talked about, in the recap, the defense does not need to be on the field that long because they get tired And a team that runs that much, it's just like body blows in a boxing match. They may not pay off in the first round, but in that third and fourth round, you start to see the fruits of that labor start to show itself. You start getting those benefits of the consistent plowing away, quarter in and quarter out, punch in and punch out. And over time, they broke our defense. They just out physicaled us or start to finish. Uncalled for, honestly. That can't happen. And our offense has to have the ability to keep the ball and go on long possessions themselves to help the defense out and give them rest. Anytime you see 44 minutes to 15, it is not going to be good for a team that only was able to have 15 minutes possession of the football in a game. You're not going to win those games, folks. That's in a simple way, we lost the game there. Another thing I wanted to bring up was the fourth down conversions. What was I worried about in relation to the fourth down conversions? As we did the preview for this game, they were, I believe, 4 for 4 in the game before on fourth down conversions. I think they even had a good fourth down conversion rate in the game they lost earlier this season. They went 6 for 6 against us, folks. Third and fourth and short was a nightmare for UTSA on Friday. They got every one of them on fourth down. Every one of them. Can't win that way. Not going to win because guess what? If a team gets you to fourth down, the expectation is that on the vast majority of those, the ball is going to go back to the opposing team. So if UTSA gets Army to those fourth downs 6 times, they probably expect, all right, 5 of these we should get the ball back. At minimum 5. Even if they're a good fourth down team, maybe 4, maybe. All 6. Those are drive extenders. Those they resort in points. 100%. And guess what else they do? They deflated UTSA. They deflated momentum. They swing momentum. A defense can go out there and make a big play, and momentum is now riding high. The crowd's into it, right? Well, they go out there and convert on the fourth down. That crowd is now pissed. Not happy. Heads drop. That's what happens. So momentum is a real thing. It messes it because it's all about confidence at that point, right? Like if you really break down what momentum is and why it's such a real thing, and the reason we see things happen and we can talk about the momentum shift, it's a shift in confidence. A lot of the times it'll make the offensive coordinator more confident to call a play. And now his receiver, who just made a great conversion on third down or fourth down, is now going to be in the zone to make another play later because now they're riding high on confidence. And whenever those teams ride high, and here's the key to the momentum shift, whenever you got that aspect of folks riding high, well, guess what's happening to the guys who are on the other side of that? Now their confidence dips. No lack of confidence, you're going to perform worse. Higher confidence, you're going to perform better. When they come together, then you get these massive momentum shifts and big plays, and you get basically dominating performances that way. And that's what happened with Army. 44 minutes of possession. You could just see the confidence. I mean, honestly, thank God that Tyke Ogle-Kellogg caught that Hail Mary pass from Eddie Lee Marburger right before halftime. Because the game could have been way, way different if that wasn't there. We still lost the game, but the game could have looked a lot different considering the fact that we were down 20-7 at the time. Things were not looking good, and Army was just hot at that time. They were feeling good. They were riding high. So insane. So one of the things I want to talk about, though, I want to shift to defense. Just looking at defense, there's just looking at Twitter, there was a lot of talk about the defense and the lack of performance that they had, or, that their performance were lacking. Yeah, they didn't have a good showing. But I don't think the offense helped them out. And I'll get onto the offense later because I don't think it's all bad. There was one thing in particular in the offense that I really, really was impressed about, but I'll get into that toward the end. But defensively, we're not built to play that style of football. It clearly has shown itself 3 consecutive contests against this group. And to be honest, they didn't even do your normal triple option, strategy or attack or game plan, or offensive game plan, right? They got some confidence in this quarterback. They were doing a lot of stuff from the gun, which is something that we don't typically see from Army. But don't get it twisted, they still ran the ball for 254 yards against us. Yeah, so they may have packaged things differently, but they still ran the ball too. They had 2 people go over 100 on us. Quarterback, Bryson Daly, he had 24 carries on 100 yards, and then Hayden Reed with 20 carries for 107. They just beat us up. Not to mention, we blew a coverage, and we blew a coverage against Army, folks. We blew a coverage, and Bryson Daly gets a touchdown pass as well. Yeah, not great. Not good at all. Listen, the defense does deserve some of the criticism that they're getting. It is a problem. We have not created a turnover all year. We're 3 games in, guys. Come on. There's too much talent on that defensive side of the ball for us not to have taken away something, right? So they do deserve some stick for that. But the one good, I guess, positive I'll take from it is they're probably not going to see another offense like that. That's the positive I'll take from it. We won't see another offense like Army, I don't think, even though they were less like their traditional form this go around. But I don't think we'll see another team that is at least built to play that style of football. So I think we are good at what the rest of our conference is at, and majority of college football teams now, and working against these spread-based teams and stuff like that. I still think we're fine there, so I do expect the defense to come out and have better performances against those style of offense, which if you look up and down our schedule, that's pretty much all we're going to face. So I expect us to return to the form that they had against Houston and they had against Texas State. But we'll have to see. I hope their confidence doesn't dip too much after getting out-physicaled and just beat up by that Army offense. And to some of the folks who are like, oh, well, the refs – guys, like the refs, listen, we did suffer from some questionable calls, and I definitely seen that there's a couple plays that you can just highlight that I'm like, these are obvious holds on the Army side, and they didn't get called for anything, so they had no penalties, but I don't think the refs took that game from us. That team was a better team. Well, yeah, they were a better team on the night. And it's weird. Like I said, it's about their play style, the way they recruit, what they want to do. I don't think if you compare rosters, they have a better roster from us if you go individual by individual. But, they got guys that come in and can follow a game plan. They're very disciplined, and you see the results. Now, moving on to the offensive side of the ball, I'll start with the bad. I'll get to the good as we kind of work through this. But one of the things that I'm a little concerned about now, and for those of you who have been watching the podcast and been listening to the podcast for a while, you guys know how big of a supporter I am of Kavorian Barnes. I think that dude is legit. I'm getting a little concerned for a couple reasons. Number one, I mentioned that I think it's obvious that he's bulked up from last season to this season. And I'll be honest, I think it's hurt his play. I'll just be completely honest. And listen, this is Roadrunners Unfiltered. This is my personal YouTube channel. I have to be honest. I'm going to give you guys my takes the way it is. I think him bulking up has taken away some explosiveness that he had in 2022. And I think we're seeing it. He's not as elusive. He doesn't seem to have the breakaway speed that he had a year ago. I don't know if there's some sort of injury, if he's banged up, but I'll be honest, you can just look at him and you can see how – and sometimes some of this stuff doesn't show up on a scale, but he looks way bigger than he was last year. He wasn't a small guy last year, but, whoa, he looks huge this year. And I just don't think he's running the ball as well. And when you think about it, against Houston, I was called on like, hey, we got to get him the ball a lot more. He had 16 carries on 103. We didn't utilize him enough. Well, then I think against Texas State, we utilized him enough, but for whatever reason, he had 26 carries for the same amount of yards. So it took him 10 yards or 10 carries more to get the same amount of yards against Texas State. Whereas I think, honestly, Houston's defense looked better than Texas State. So you went against a worse defense, in my opinion, and you didn't have a good showing. And I even think there were some runs in that Houston game, in that Texas State game specifically, where I'm like, dude, normally if it's you one-on-one with one of these safeties coming down full speed in the pocket, you don't let them tackle you. I mean, to Texas State credit, they made some good open field tackles, but he's not a guy, at least going back to the 2022 season, you're not tackling that. Not one guy's not bringing that dude down the open field, not on a consistent basis. And I feel like that happened on too many accounts, in the Texas State game. And some people will probably say like, oh, you're tripping. He had 103 yards against Texas State. He did. I am very aware of that. But he had it on 26 carries. That's 4.0 yards per carry. He take a couple steps backwards. Now we're down to 3, and that's when it gets a little weird. And the reason I'm going to trip on 4.0 yards per carry for him, he averaged 6.3 yards per carry in 2022 over the course of a season. He's better than what he's shown the last 2 games. Not to mention, I haven't even got to this, he's lost fumbles in back-to-back games now. You can't do that against that Army team. You can't. You cannot afford to give that team additional possessions. Guess what? He gave him one. In a pivotal moment, in a time where we really needed to respond. And he had a good run. The run was a good, solid run. Can't do that. Because I can tell you this, Rocco Griffin and Robert Henry are running the ball well, both guys. I mean, did you see Robert Henry's touchdown run? Did you see what he did to that? Listen, whenever you guys get a chance, go back and look at that touchdown run and look at how he disposes of that safety in the pocket. Shouts to Robert Henry. Hell of a run, bro. Hell of a run. So I seen, and on the last pods, I was looking at some of the comments. People are asking for, these guys to get more carries, and I kind of brushed those off because I'm like, I think Barnes is the guy. Look, if you're gonna fumble the ball and turn the ball over, and you don't seem as dynamic as you were a year ago, I have to put my favoritism to the side and think about what's best for the football team. So it kind of concerns me because he, to me, is arguably, I think, their best weapon on offense that's not, a quarterback, even over Cephas, honestly. I do think that high of Kavorian Barnes, but I've been a little disappointed in him the last couple of games, if I'm just being completely honest. And I know they don't give a shit about anything that I say, but, I'm going to call a spade a spade. I think that he's better than what he's shown the last couple of games, especially with the fumble losses. Can't happen. Another thing I'm really concerned about on the offensive side of the ball right now is the reception distribution. Joshua Cephas, he had 8 catches. He's been great this year. But nobody else is getting the rock, man. And what happens when teams say, we're going to take away Joshua Cephas by doubling him in some way? We're going to shade him underneath, have somebody over the top of him at all times. We're gonna find a way to do this no matter where he lines up, whether that's on the outside or in the slot, or even when he goes in motion. We're going to make sure we have eyes on him and make it very difficult for him to catch passes. When that happens, what are we going to do with the passing game? I don't know. That's worrisome. I know there's a whole J.T. Clark element to this, but we got to wait on health there, right? So, it's worrisome. It's worrisome. So I was looking at the stats earlier. Joshua Cephas has 24 catches on the season right now. The next person is Taki Ogle-Kellogg at 10. So Cephas has more than double the amount of catches that he has. When you go from Ogle-Kellogg, the next person who's a pass catcher, not talking about check downs to running backs or screens to running backs. The next person, there's a few guys who are at 4. At 4 receptions. Not great. Not great. It worries me. My passing, I'm worried about the passing game because teams are going to pick up on our tendencies there, and are we going to be able to pivot properly? I do want to give a shout out to the OC on this though, and I'm going to move into the positive part of what positive things I looked at offensively. I do think our coordinator called a way better game than he has the first 2 weeks. I would give him credit there. I think he did a hell of a job on some. The play call on 3rd and 3, I believe this was in the third quarter, to Joshua Cephas. Whenever they sent heat, Eddie Lee got the ball out quick to Joshua Cephas. The receivers on the edge made their blocks. It was a beautiful play call. It was an easy catch and run and score for Joshua Cephas. Shouts to the OC for that, man. That was big time. It was at a pivotal time, and it was just perfectly executed. So I definitely want to make sure I called that out because I have not been happy with his play calls. Before we got into this game, the first 2 games, I didn't like any of the play calls that we had. I thought we did terrible on third downs. I was very critical of some of the third down calls, but got to call a spade a spade. Whenever people step up and do their thing, got to acknowledge that. So I want to make sure I acknowledge that as well. Moving on to the next thing, though. The one positive note that I really got out of the game was Eddie Lee Marburger. So we talked a little bit about this in the last couple of weeks, and people were like, what does quarterback 2 look like? Is it even going to be him, or is it going to be the Owens kid from Colorado? And I will say that I was very impressed and surprised, to be frank, at how good that he looked, to be honest. I did not expect him to be able to command the offense the way he did, and he made some big-time accurate throws in that game. His deep ball to Devin McEwen was just nothing short of spectacular. Some of the decision-making he made, he's very decisive, which I like that. So I looked at the way that he ran the offense, and if you ask me right now, if that was the quarterback right now, do I think we'd be in a better situation or better off with him right now? No. Frank's our guy. Frank's a legend. Frank hadn't got off to the best start, but I still believe in Frank, and I'm going to back Frank 100%. But it does make me think about the next season and the season after that. And it makes me feel good to know that at worst, this is what we have, and I think this guy's already ready. If we needed him, if something catastrophic were to happen, and I'm going to knock on wood, in terms of injury or whatever with Frank, and we had to thrust him, Eddie Lee Marburger, in as the quarterback for the rest of the season, we'd be fine. We still have a shot at conference. We still have a shot at winning big-time football games. So I think he played well enough for us to win that game. I just think that we didn't, defensively we had some issues, and that team was they came to play. Army came to play. There's just no getting around that. I'll tell you this, it makes me think like next week, I don't know what the status is on Frank Harris and the injury stuff, but let's not bring him back against Tennessee. We have a bye week after that, I believe. Let's just, let Eddie Lee get him another start under his belt against a big-time opponent, and let's let Harris heals, and get a good clean bill of health and bring him back for Temple. So that's the way I see it. I think Coach alluded to some of that. I think he alluded to that a little bit, I believe, in the post game. But then I want to end there though, on Coach Traylor's post game press conference, and there was some mixed feelings on some of that too that I seen on Twitter. And here's what I'll say to that: I loved the candidness that he showed in the press conference. And I'll tell you why. I think he was humble, and it showed great humility. And it gives me confidence that if there's something wrong, he's going to work to find a solution to fix it. And so I was happy whenever people were asking him, like, what can you do this? He was like, hell, I don't know. You tell me. We got to figure something out. Like, things ain't working the way they should be working. I can't. And he took complete responsibility on himself and that sort of thing. I'm going to tell you why I like that. I like it because sometimes you get coaches, and I mean, you can even run this parallel with your everyday life, and you have a manager. The people that you go to who always has an answer every time, those are the people who are inflexible in a way. And if they do make adjustments, they're going to be minor adjustments. And if those adjustments, they're going to think that one little adjustment is the perfect magic to fix whatever problem it is. And a lot of the time, it's just them moving a problem, not solving a problem. So what I liked about his response is that he doesn't have the answer right now. I think that's what he was really saying. I don't have the answer at this point in time. I don't. I'm going to find it. It's got to get found. It's my responsibility to find it. It's up to me to find it. We're not playing very good football right now. I'm happy that he acknowledged that too. The players are going to see that. They're going to take that personal. They're going to, not as a shot, but they're going to understand that their leader is having to answer questions on their play because some of the individuals aren't playing up to par at the moment, right? So it's not always players' fault. It's not always coach's fault. It's a collective. It's the unit's fault. Everybody has to chip in and chip away to get this done. So I guarantee you that coming into this upcoming week's practice, there's going to be a lot that coach is going to put on them to make sure that they cross all their T's and dot all their I's to make sure they fix this issue. I was really, really happy with what he said in the presser. It's the truth. The team is not playing well, and they're going to have to get things figured out. So anyway, but with that, I'll wrap up. I'm really excited about what's to come. Like I said before, man, that 500 milestone from a subscriber standpoint is going to allow me to do some more things with the channel. I didn't want to commit to some of the other content that will be coming without an actual audience that's established here. So you guys, with your subscriptions, are allowing me to do that. So I really appreciate it. Make sure you guys